Let's go to the phone and join Stephen Mosher, who is a sports ethics expert. Stephen, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Have you heard our discussion there? Where do you stand on this?
Where do I stand on this slippery slope between gamesmanship and sportsmanship and cheating?
Yeah.
Very carefully, I stand there.
Okay. Well,
but, cycling is not a huge sport in the United States, so I've had to inform myself. And from what I gather, you can do a restart if there's a mechanical failure. But from all the stories I've seen on the internet, there was no mechanical failure. So this is clearly an act of cheating, and yet within the world of cycling, it seems to be something that's done all the time, and it's not such a big deal.
See, I was asking the question here, what's the difference between that and the Chinese badminton team deliberately trying to lose their matches to secure easier draws in the knockout rounds? And dare I say it, and make myself even more unpopular, if the team that I'm discussing wasn't British in the cycling, would it still have stood, and would they still have had the gold?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That in one sport it's a mortal sin, and in another sport it isn't. And both of them are British sports, aren't they?
They certainly are. But how far can one push it before it becomes cheating?
Well, I think when you're dealing with commercialized sport, you can push it as far as the audience is willing to believe it and let you go. As soon as you stop making any kind of money or lose viewers or interest, then you'll start seeing people become more moral. One of the soccer matches in the preliminary rounds where Japan deliberately tied a game with South Africa so they could stay in Wales rather than travel to Glasgow is also out there, and nobody seems to be talking about that one, but that clearly was not giving your best effort. I think in the cycling thing, within the world of cycling, it seems that the people aware know that the British team was the best, and so I think they're willing to give them a little bit more leeway than others. But then again, the Chinese doubles team was the best in the world, and they're booted out.
Stephen, you can provide quite an independent view. I mean, over here in the UK, there's been very little sort of dissent or argument or even criticism really of the British cyclists. I mean, from your point of view and over there, this seems almost reprehensible in a way that they've been able to get away with this, and the Chinese badminton players haven't.
Yes, and I don't think I would agree with that, and I don't think we're going to solve it in the next 5 minutes. But the idea that sport somehow makes you a better moral person obviously started with Tom Arnold in rugby school. I would be, in the 21st century, hesitant to think that sport has this magic ability to make human beings better people.
In fact, sport at the very level, and Stephen will know this, can amplify certain personal characteristics and bring the worst out in people. I don't for 1 minute say that that's well, it's interesting that was a planned act. If they didn't have a good start with the British cyclist team, they would manufacture a technical error. The thing is, as Stephen's already identified, if it's within the rules and the laws governing this particular element of cycling, then it's open to everybody to take that option. So therefore, but do you feel it's political? Do you feel then we've got politics in sport? Do we now tarnish the whole mission statement of the Olympics by politics? Is this where we're headed now?
And I think what maybe would happen, Stephen, is that because this has been looked at and been looked upon by the IOC, so from the highest level, then maybe a rule change would come in. We talk about the badminton. They changed that system to play a group system, didn't they, instead of a round robin, which allowed that system for them to sort of throw the games to manufacture their way through. So had they not changed that, it wouldn't have happened. So will they change? Do you think they'll look at changing this rule, Stephen?
I would assume that they would. Isn't that the nature of sport, though? You operate within a set of rules that everybody understands, constantly looking for a competitive edge. And as soon as you find one, the people who don't have the competitive edge feel slighted, and they go to the rules committee and complain about it, and then the rules committee utterly arbitrarily says, yes, this is okay, or it isn't. You know, in 1968, a young man named Dick Fosbury turned his back to the high bar when he was high jumping, and everybody in the high jumping world said, that's not high jumping, and it was the rules committee that said, yes, it is. So more power to Dick Fosbury, but when you deliberately lose something in order to gain an advantage, you've got a serious problem with the rules and the organizational setup.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, it seems to me, I mean, I completely agree, there's a serious problem with the organisation. I mean, it's like match fixing in a way, isn't it? It's in another sport.
Is, absolutely.
Yeah, or it's not just as simple as say in cricket where a batsman edges the ball and refuses to walk. It's not like that. It's much more obvious and predetermined than that, isn't it? And it seems so wrong.
So, Stephen, do we now have this where we say, right, we have a ruling and it's one size fits all? So if you go down this route of premeditation, if you think, right, we'll fall off to gain an advantage, or we'll do something, or we'll play in a certain way, does it blanket? Can you get away with that and say, right, no matter what sport, no matter what discipline within that sport, you take that path, you're out? Is that going to work? Will people adhere to it?
If you could actually demonstrate that that was the path you were taking, then yes, you would be out. But I'm not so naive as to think that this won't continue over and over and over again. One of the French representatives said that Mr. Hines' real problem was not that he did what he did, but that he actually told the truth immediately afterwards. And the French representative said his only mistake was telling the truth. And if we've come to that level, then it's important for us all to remember that sport is not that special. It's just like everything else in the world. It may be exciting and it may be interesting, but it's got its warts and its problems as well.
It certainly does. Stephen Mosher, thank you very much for joining us. Stephen, an expert on sports ethics. Very interesting indeed. So we'll ask that question based on what happened there in the team sprint. So Chris Hoy and his team members winning gold